So I'm going to go ahead and hit record. Okay. So now basically you're going to say something like, hey, this is Rob Scott from robscott.com. And you are listening to Jeff Smith on Vroom Vroom Veer. Listen up. Something like that.
This is Rob Scott from robscott.com. And you're listening to Jeff Smith on Vroom Vroom Veer.
Well done. You didn't screw up or nothing. Can we go back and screw up?
You want me to screw up?
If you wouldn't mind. No, I'm just kidding. I just wanted to get a little outtake in there. You see how that worked?
Yeah, perfect. This is Bobby Scattini coming at you live from Vroom Vroom something or other. There it is.
Bobby Scattini. It's a very Philly name. All right. I'm going to hit stop and I'll be right back.
Are you ready to thoughtfully steer away from your revved up, frenzied, and far too often scripted life? Then welcome to Vroom Vroom Veer with Jeff Smith, where he guides you down the road differently traveled by sharing unique experiences with guests who have managed to shift away from a life stuck on cruise control and veered their way into a more authentic and fulfilling one in all sorts of interesting and kind of remarkable ways. Get ready to Vroom Vroom Veer with your differently traveled road chauffeur, Jeff Smith.
Hilary DeCesare, thank you so much for being on Vroom Vroom Veer and welcome to the show. How's it going?
It's going terrific.
So you are at the ReLaunch Co, right?
I am.
.com.
Yes.
So talk a little bit about what you're most excited about in your business today.
Well, I'm most excited that there is so many relaunches happening right now as we speak. And where people think relaunches always have to be something, negative or a setback, there's also so many relaunches that people are going through that are really incredible. People are creating new ideas, new businesses. They're, getting involved in new types of, practices around their own homes. And this is an exciting time because we all came into this idea around shelter in place, one person, but we're all going to leave and move on to the next phase of our life as someone totally different.
It's true. You're right. It's fun. In that weird, scary, not fun way, it's fun.
Well, you know what? Here's the thing. For those that, and I was one that was diagnosed or I had COVID-19 at the very early stages.
Really? Wow.
Yeah. It was during the time where only the old people were getting it. And then I got it and I'm like, okay, wait a second.
I'm not old.
I'm too young. I'm too young for this.
Right.
But I have to say, I have a different perspective because I did have it. I had to get through it. And that's where I'm noticing now the fear that comes with, oh my God, am I going to get it? And the people who now are being tested and they have the antibodies, they're feeling like, okay, I'm now past that. But yet we're all still in this time period of like, nobody knows anything about it, right? They don't know if I can get it again. But we do know this, that in 2008, more millionaires were created after that. And I'm thinking right now with what I'm seeing, creativity, I'm seeing people relaunching, as I said, some are saying, hey, I really want to take my relationship to the next level. And some are saying, I want to quit my job altogether. I want to go do something totally brand new. And then on the flip side, there are those that are going through really traumatic relaunches. And they too are now seeing, okay, there's got to be some type of change, some type of like movement, some type of small steps to kind of get this process going. And that's where I get excited because I do believe that we have something really special, really incredible, life-changing in the ReLaunch method.
And I think you do. I think you really hit something, It's the same thing I hit, the same wave. We're on the same wavelength. Yeah.
We talked before. I agree. I think we're definitely, no doubt.
We are. So, okay. So before we get too deep, we have to we're going to talk about a couple of things. We're going to tease a couple of stories, the coming soon. So in this show, we're going to tell a story that involves a bra. We'll call it the bra story, right? And you're telling it because I don't even know what it is. And then we're also going to talk about how a beer and a shot of tequila, maybe on a beach, relaunched your life. So that sounds, they both sound a lot of fun.
Maybe we should just get right to those.
No, you can't get right to those. We have to go back in time and talk about little Hilary when you were younger and where you started and your grow up story. So where did you grow up?
I grew up in the Bay Area, and I'm actually now in San Francisco, and grew up with my parents, and then they got divorced. Mom decided, let's head down to Los Angeles with her new husband and my brother, and we kind of ended up doing that whole back and forth, the kids on the plane that at that time you could walk, your kids to the airplane and then
drop
they
them
would,
off. Yeah.
And drop them off and say, okay, bye-bye.
Wow.
And, do
you were
that.
One of those kids on the plane.
I was one
yourself.
of,
okay.
I was one of those kids where my brother, when I was crying, because I was so sad to be leaving whoever I was leaving,
right.
He would do that whole fist, bam into my arm to say, will you stop crying?
Buck up. Buck up.
I was that kid. Exactly. Do you always have to cry?
Yeah. Wow.
So,
That's
I did that. Yeah. Now we laugh about it now, but at the time it was very traumatic.
Sure.
And then from there, I ended up going off to college in Colorado, Boulder, CU.
Oh, nice.
And loved it. What a great, great time. And then moved back to the Bay Area. Unfortunately, when I moved back to the Bay Area, I thought I was going to be going to LA, but I was coming back because my stepmom had gotten super sick my senior year. And so I came back to kind of help my dad. It turned out to be a great story. She's doing awesome. She's, still, my gosh, doing everything that she was doing then. And ended up kind of getting involved in the corporate world by just happenstance. I mean, crazy how it all.
So what did you study
together.
In college?
That's where this whole story really begins. I went in, I had a dad who was a doctor, a grandfather who's a doctor, and I was gonna be a doctor. And within the first year, pre-med first year, and I absolutely hated it. Hated everything about it. Hated the, cutting things open. Hated the chemistry, the organic chemistry. I just didn't like it. So made the call to my dad and said, I'm not doing this. I just don't want to be a doctor. And he said, you know what, Hilary, that's just fine, but you're out of state tuition. So you need to figure it out so that you can graduate in 4 years because I'm not paying any extra for you switching your major. So I'm like, woo!
Wow. Okay.
And so at that time, my advisor was a anthropologist. And he said, you only have two choices that you can do. You can go into psychology or you can become, go into anthropology. And I'm like, okay, psychology, I'll do that.
Yeah.
So it worked out perfectly because
there's a job at the end of that anyway.
I didn't even know how fortuitous it was that psych degree would fuel all of my interests later on in life around people, around why they do things, around, the mindset, around, the energy, all of that, the, neuroplasticity of everything that's going on in the brain. It was just so cool. So I ended up loving everything about that. But I went after, this is funny. So senior year of college and there's a huge snowstorm. I have to, get my classes. And instead of being able to do it online, it ended up you had to go in and do the bubbles and all that to fill it out. Well, it ended up that I decided I really wanted to try to get into this sales class. It was called personal selling. And so I ended up going down to the department. It was halfway across campus and filled it out. And lo and behold, a week later, I got into the class and I'm in the class. And the teacher says, to this very small group of about 30, hey, congratulations. You guys are the lucky ones. You've taken all the prerequisites to get here. And this is going to be an awesome class. You've done this, and I haven't done anything. I'm like, so I ended up talking to him. I talked to him afterwards and I said, okay, I never have taken any of these classes. I don't know anything about any of it. And he looked at me and said, the fact that you're in this class, the fact that you got here, the fact that you got a seat, you get to keep it. And that class was like the beginning of my love in sales. I ended up leaving college and got a job at Xerox. And that was, I know,
That's
I was
how
a copier.
Slipped into the corporate world.
I slipped in via selling copiers.
That's awesome. But you're good at sales, so good for you, though.
Very sexy job. Yeah. Well, then the funny thing is they had my first hiring freeze ever, and they couldn't get me out of like one area of the Xerox world. And so I ended up interviewing at a company called Oracle, and which is in itself the biggest joke ever because I didn't even know how to type. I didn't know how, I didn't have a clue of computers. And I'm going for this job, Jeff. And they're like, okay, well, this is really awesome. Well, I got the job and I went to this.
How you're just so good at sales. You just persuaded your way into the job, basically.
Well, thank God I didn't open my mouth and say what I'm about to say because another woman there, I looked at her and I'm like, I don't know anything about computers. What can I go do? And at that point, Google wasn't a part of like, you can just go. And so she brought me a whole big, like 10 Britannica, and all about computers. Oh and I came to her the next day and I said, okay, so I've read the first one. Tell me about this MS-DOS thing. And she just looked at me. She looked at me and I think that's when the emoji of the hand hit the forehead. That's when it actually was developed. She just looked at me and said, we discussed this before. My family says that I'm like, I love Lucy and I have Lucy moments. And this was a Lucy moment. It was like, yeah. Yeah. So anyway, I did that. I was there for 10 years selling manufacturing, financials. I mean, you name it. And
did you ever learn about computers or did you read all
I learned, oh my gosh, the funniest. Yes. The funniest is they actually sent me to like developer training and consulting.
Nice.
And,
wow.
Oh yeah. I had to learn everything about stuff I did not want to learn.
That's nothing wrong with that. But thank God you did. Now you're in the future and you know shit about computers. Thank God. Thank God.
I know. Yeah. I definitely know a lot of shit about a lot of different things. No doubt. And that's actually right after that, I decided right during I had this epiphany that I really wanted to help other CEOs figure out their businesses and develop strategic plans around it. So I started a consulting firm with a dear friend of mine from Oracle as well. And we did that in the Silicon Valley for years and years and years. And then I caught the bug. I caught that entrepreneur bug and I started to create and launch my own companies. And so now I'm really where I should be. ReLaunch it's just so perfect to have it all come together. All of it, all paths do lead to, like, there is a reason for everything.
Yes. Every moment. Yeah. Every little like seed. I had this, when I bought my house last year, I guess, I had a buddy come over and help me change out the floor in the bathroom. Right. And we started like, we're drinking beer and going, wow, I'm really sore. Right. As you do, as you're putting in a new floor. But
right.
We started like comparing notes about, life, like kind of like what we're doing right now, and I started like saying like, yeah, there was this guy and he just said, are you maxing out your IRAs? And this other guy, I was like, no, what's an IRA? Right.
Yeah, exactly. Well, what is that? Do I know about that?
I met this guy literally, I think I talked to him maybe 4 times in my life. And every time I did, he changed my life.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, he did. But he taught me about money. He was just like, okay, max out your IRA and go read this book by the Motley Fool guys. Right? Changed my life. Changed my life.
Yeah.
Taught me everything about, investing and everything else. And then there was this random captain while I was still in the Air Force, and I think I was in Hawaii. I had never met this guy before. I never met him again in my life. Just sat down next to him, had a beer, and I told him that I was getting out of the Air Force and I was going to go to college. And I didn't really know what I was going to do for money, and I had a whole lot of credit card debt, but I'd figure that out later, And he said, you should re-enlist. Because you're a dickweed.
Oh my.
And I'm like, mad. I'm like, what do you mean? He's like, you have no clue. You really have no clue.
Yeah.
You're not ready.
Isn't it humbling? It is humbling when someone says that, you know what, you have no idea what you're doing. And we have no idea how you got here.
Right. Right.
Nor do I.
And it was just like, yeah. And I think I got mad and I was like, screw that guy, And then later on I re-enlisted.
Yeah. Then you realized, wait a second. He was actually giving me really sound advice.
He was probably right. I am a dickweed and I'm stupid and I have a bunch of debt and I have no clue what I'm going to do. Yeah. So
I laugh because I sit here and I think about that woman. Her name was Jara. And I mean, you talk about imposter syndrome. I mean, I didn't even know. I didn't know anything. I mean, I mentioned that, there was that typing. I didn't know how to type. So I had to take a night class just to learn how to type because in college there was this Elvira. She was like the Elvira of the night. You would drop, she's called the phantom typer, and you drop your paper off that was handwritten, scribbled, and you'd get it back like at 6 a.m. in the morning. And she would basically have done such a great job with when she couldn't read your writing, she just wrote what she thought it should say. So your paper came back that much better. So why would anyone want to learn to type? And so it ends up that, I laugh because, I had to eventually type as I was listening, which again, served me very well as I went through the sales channel that I could type and nobody would even know. I could look at you and I could, have every single word down that you were speaking. And It's just funny though, but good, God bless Jara, because I wouldn't be where I am right now without her.
Right.
Or those Encyclopedia Britannicas.
MS-DOS. I like MS-DOS. That's good.
MS-DOS.
Something similar like to that happened. Do you remember before there was Excel, there was this program called Lotus 123? Probably not.
Of course.
Oh, you do remember Lotus.
Yeah. I mean, come on, I'm a techie.
Well, I was a nerd. I mean, I was like a nerd, young nerd. And I was in this really cool class in high school, actually. And one of the computer teacher came up to the seniors in the class and said, here you go. There's this big table of books. And each book was like that, encyclopedia size. Oh. And it was like, pick a book. And you're going to become the god of that program, right? For this year. It's going to be your senior project. And I picked up Lotus 123. I was like, I have no idea what that is, but I think it sounds neat. But it was great because, I mean, I learned how to do those macros and all those things that Excel does. And that served me my whole life. It still does, Just knowing how to plug a formula into a cell. You'd be surprised how many people don't know how to do that.
I know. Yeah. Trust me. There were people that I met that, were running Fortune 500 companies and in terms of, financials and talking about their MRP, and they would, it's just funny how we only learn what we need to, but then all of a sudden when you question them, oh, well, so-and-so does that. Yeah. Right, well, I don't need to do that because, so-and-so nowadays I feel with what's happening, especially with where we are today, we've had to learn so much more. I mean,
That's true.
Every day is, oh my gosh, I now have to learn that piece of technology, that, that microphone. How do you work that? I mean, it's really, I mean, if you could see this big, gigantic thing sticking out of this room, but it's hooked into my desk that is like jerry rigged to, so it doesn't fall over.
Yeah.
The whole thing it's funny.
You can't see my microphone. I'm hiding it well. So.
No, all I can see is the beach, and you look really happy.
So before we get too far into this, let's get to the bra story.
Okay. So the bra story is this, that I was going on a trip with my brother, and
the one that punched you?
The one that punched me. We actually became best friends, later on in life.
Good.
And we were heading down to Southern California, actually, Newport Beach. And I had to go through the airport. And as I'm going through, and I had my little teeny, carry-on bag, and all of a sudden, I'm in that machine where you put your hands up and they're scanning my body, and I, get out and they're like, you're fine. And then all of a sudden I look over and they do that thing that you never want them to do. They point to your bag and say, is this your bag? And you're like, oh, what could possibly be in there?
Oh
my God, there's nothing in there. And I'm a big traveler. I'm not like, junior
You're not
here.
a rookie. Yes.
I'm not. I got this. But of course my brother is making me feel like that little girl on the plane. Like, are you an idiot? How could this happen? Of course, Lucy, of course. What do you have in there? Your water. So anyway, they are searching through my bag and they can't find anything. And I'm like, of course you can't find anything because there's nothing in there. I know, I do this. And so then they bring another, and now there's two men, and then they bring another, and there's another guy, and they're all looking through, and
wow,
they cannot find anything in my bag, but they know that there's something there. So all of a sudden, out flies a bra, and my eyes go bug, my mouth opens, and I'm like, oh my God, it's my water bra. It's my water bra. And at that point, instead of like pads and cushions, they would put water in these bras to make it supernatural.
Gotcha.
And they probably have like a quarter of a cup in each. So it would clearly be over the, the limits of the ounces. So anyway, they all are staring at me and I'm cracking up, and I'm like, and of course my brother's mortified at this point. And so I end up telling him, I'm like, there's water in there. So they end up bringing this woman. So now I've got 4 TSA, people investigating literally my bra. They have my bra in their hands and they're squeezing it, and so it ends up that the woman finally looks at me and puts it back in the bag and says, continue on. But the reason I even bring this story up is that we all have crap in our bag, right? We all have stuff that we are sitting here saying, there's nothing there, no, I'm all good. When in fact, you really do have baggage. And so
you do.
that's my big water bra
story. Wow. That was a really good story.
Ooh,
it's perfect.
I'm glad you liked it.
That was great. I was thoroughly amused the whole way. I thought it was going to be an underwire, but okay. But then underwire wouldn't really, who cares, right? That would be okay.
Oh yeah, no.
That's okay.
That's not it. That wouldn't be a good story. Mm-mm.
It would be, you're right. That's true. Water. Now, I thought.
Now, of course, they don't
the water out.
They don't make water bras anymore, unfortunately. And I'm sad to say I don't have it. I'm like, oh, but yes, it was a great.
So that
great
must
concept.
have been the precursor to the Wonder Bra. So now they're just.
Yes, it was. It was the precursor. It was. It's when they were. Yeah, I think it was during when they were still doing saline. Breast.
Oh, right. Sure.
And then they decided, well, if we do that, inside the boob, let's do it in the bra. And dang it. It worked. It was great. But I mean, with these days, you can't be going through the airport with, too much water in your bra. Maybe there's a new concept here. Maybe, you can put it in and then take it out. There's, like you said, there could be that, like, removal.
You need the little,
and then
squirty valve thingy. So.
Ooh, Jeff, see, we're creating right now together. Somebody out there is listening saying,
yes,
that's a really good idea.
Thing. Yes.
So when you make millions and millions, come back to Jeff and me and we'll say congratulations.
Maybe you could use air. Don't they have like air bras?
I think actually they do.
Yeah.
I think, yeah. Yeah, I think they do.
This is the bra for
Who would have thought that we would be talking about, again, it has to do with water, and you have water behind you for people who can't see. He has one of those Zoom screens. And so when he said, any stories, I'm like, oh, I'll tell this and that. And now I'm starting to realize why my brain went there.
Right. It's all because of the beach.
It's all because of the beach.
So you were on the beach when a beer and a tequila shot sort of relaunched your life somehow.
Okay, but I wasn't on the beach yet.
Okay,
so
you were going to
I'm gonna take you back in time.
Sweet.
All right, I had just gotten separated, and I was heading off to Cabo with a girlfriend, and we got there, and we were both just ready. We were ready to this is going to be the beginning of the next chapter of our lives. Right here, right now, this trip. I know a lot of, men and women, when they're going through something like this, you just need that defining moment. So we decided, after being invited, we decided that we are going to go skydiving. And this is Mexico. And so we get to the skydiving place. And as we're driving up, it should have dawned on me when I saw the 3-legged dog walking along. I'm like, ooh, not so good. And then they tell me we actually skydive barefoot. And so I finally was in, and I'm in the plane, and the only saving grace is that I will have somebody on my back, clearly. And he happened to be this very attractive Aussie. And so I thought, all right, if I do go down, if this is it, if this is my first and last jump, at least I've got Hottie on my back. So I ended up, finally being pushed out of that plane. And we float down, and it's just a crazy, crazy, crazy experience. I finally hit the sand, and it
barefoot.
Is like, barefoot, feet in the sand. It's so awesome. Unfortunately, for one of the other people in our group, their landing wasn't as good. They landed on somebody's umbrella, their sun umbrella. And so I look over and he's literally like taking it down. I'm like, oh my God, thank God that wasn't me. But I'm sitting there, my feet are in, the sand. And I'm like, oh my God, my adrenaline is just off the charts. I look to my right, and I'm not kidding when I say there is a beach shack 15 feet away from me. And I stumble over there. I walk up, and they immediately hand me a beer and a shot of tequila.
Perfect.
And I thought, it doesn't get any better than this. You talk about a relaunch beginning. I threw my arms up, then I threw my tequila in my mouth, took a swig of the beer, and I'm like, I've arrived.
Amen. You're talking about one of those peak experiences. Have you ever watched that show? I don't know what it's called, but it's the Bear Grylls guy on TV where he's like the survivalist dude.
Yeah.
He takes celebrities out to the wilderness and makes them think they're going to die.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then when they don't die, right? Just like when your feet hit the beach, right? Your brain is like, I didn't die.
Totally. Biggest adrenaline rush ever.
Yeah,
yes.
Like, I'm alive.
Yeah.
Give me a beer and a
You're
shot. And I'm gonna go get Hottie drunk.
Yeah. And then you try to recapture those moments in life. You're like, oh yeah, I need that again.
Great story. And that was the beginning of the rest of your life. Yes.
It was the beginning, because literally from that point on, I relaunched my relationship. I relaunched my work. I relaunched my life. I went from, kind of this, what we all have is this idea that we have to love our life. We have to love our relationships. We have to love our job. And for some of us, we're just not there, right? We're not. Right. And so we feel like, we're not keeping up with, what we're supposed to be doing if we don't feel that way. Well, you know what? A lot of us don't. And so what we really, start with is I always am a believer, you got to like yourself before you can love anything. And with that, it was one of those moments where that was the beginning where I'm just like, okay, this is so symbolic for me. So symbolic. And actually I can, when I have a beer and a shot of tequila, it does trigger something in my brain. I do go a little crazy for those that know me. I go a little crazy with those tequila shots. I get a little loosey, yeah. And we all love Lucy, don't we? Yes, we do. Especially when they're doing tequila.
That's awesome. That's awesome. So as we wrap up, let's talk a little bit more about how people can get in touch with Hilary out there on the webs. And,
awesome. So if people are interested in, kind of hitting that reset button, I would suggest going over to the ReLaunchCo.com. And you can actually, we have something on there that is super fun. It's a exercise called You Dating You.
Oh, and I love that.
It's not for single people. It's for single people, but it's also for people who are in relationships. It's not about that part of it. It's like you hiring you, right, for a job. Okay. But this is you dating you. And it takes you through, how would that be? What would that be like?
Right.
Would you want to date yourself? Which there's a lot of people, I'm not sure, they might be going like, yikes. Yikes, scary. Yeah. I need a lot of tequila, right? I need tequila and those beer chasers.
Right. That's great. The other thing I wanted to say, okay, that's great. So everybody go to the ReLaunchCo.com, check out that How to Date Yourself. As we wrap up here, when I went hunting with my brother and dad and cousins and everybody back in the day, the deer hunting thing, because I'm from Michigan, and if you're a man, that's what you do. But the tradition of after you get your buck, you have to have a beer and a shot. And it doesn't matter what time of day it is.
Oh, that is a
Usually
good tradition.
It's happening, at like 9 o'clock or whatever, doesn't matter.
In the morning. Yeah.
Yes.
Nothing like a shot and a beer in the morning.
That's right. You bag the buck. Have a shot and a beer. But it's an adrenaline rush, and you just need something to take the edge off, and you're partying at that point. It's like, woo, yay.
You're celebrating
the win. Exactly.
Totally. And we're all about celebrating the win. That's the best part.
This has been a blast. It was a little too much fun. We were probably too loud. I'm going to have to turn down the volume maybe a little bit.
Yeah. I'm glad that we got you back up to that higher level. I'd hate to think that, together, you and me, we couldn't, really kind of kick it into air. Yeah. That would not be right.
That would be crazy. We would be above 20 all the time.
If we were in person together, you're right.
This has been a blast. Let's do it again soon. You have a good one.
Thanks again.
Thanks for taking the time to ride along with us on another episode of Vroom Vroom Veer. For podcast info and show notes, be sure to head over to vvveer.com. That's VVER.com. Man, that's fun to say. And we'll catch up with you next time here on Vroom Vroom Veer.